Overwatch 2 might be in the best balanced state it's had since launch, but by no means does that make it perfect. I think you or any other player could put together a list, long or short, of things they'd like to see changed, added, or reverted. So in today's video, I'd like to go over some of my current gripes with the state of the game and what I'd like to see changed going forward. First off is the matchmaker. Many creators have been vocalizing how broken the system feels at the moment, and right now I'd say half of my games are either my team rolling or the enemy team rolling over us, and I genuinely don't think I've ever felt matchmaking imbalance to this degree. In my recent video, I covered the latest blog post where Aaron Keller talked about queue times and match balance, claiming improvement on both fronts. And while I feel the queue times have improved, the matchmaker just seems to be spitting out a lottery for what level of players you're gonna have in your game. I've been checking career profiles more often lately, and consistently I'm seeing players ranked low GM all the way down to gold in my Diamond 1 lobbies. These lightning fast queue times are great, but I don't think any of us mind waiting an extra minute or two for even 50% more fair matches. Misbalanced matches are certainly inevitable in Overwatch, since one player's hero pool can entirely counter another's, or a map can heavily favor your best hero while nerfing another. But I've been a part of 5-minute beatdowns way more than I ever have, so whatever Blizzard has been tweaking with the matchmaker needs to be addressed further soon. Now let's discuss the season to season rank reset, which in its current state, I feel is way too severe. Right now, on average, players seem to be dropping 1 to 2.5 full ranks on each role. This reset wouldn't feel so terrible if there wasn't a separate rank for each role, but as a player who's more recently been trying to improve my rank on tank and damage, I'm feeling the season reset so much heavier. To get back to your last season's rank on all 3 roles, you're looking at a ballpark of like 60 wins minimum, and as someone who can only afford to play the game for like 6 to 8 hours a week, that's way too much of the season just re-achieving what I've already done. And yet the reset doesn't make your matches any easier. Your cloaked MMR is what the matchmaker still bases your games off of. You're still playing the same skill level players you were at the end of the previous season, so what's the point? I know the system is common across all ranked games as it gives the player a feeling of progression each season, regardless of if they've improved, but with Overwatch having 3 separate ranks, it just feels like too much for someone who wants to play and improve on all 3 roles and doesn't have more than a couple nights a week to put the time in. I don't mind if Blizzard want to drop you down a couple tiers season to season, but at this state right now, it is just too heavy for people that can't play this game full time. Now let's talk about some current hero abilities and interactions that just really don't feel very good, starting with Kiriko's cleanse. A clip flew around Overwatch Twitter recently of Somju playing Doomfist, lining up what looked to be a great play, and it costing him his life as he flew through an entire team touched by Suzu. I think we've all experienced something to this degree where the ability just doesn't feel right or fair in those off circumstances. Suzu removing all potential hero interactions creates too much opportunity for wonky or silly things to happen. I wish I had a recording on hand, but on more than one occasion, I myself have died as Kiriko due to my own Suzu. I've cleansed teammates in front of me expecting to save them from a Reinhardt pin, Doomfist punch, or Orisa javelin, and instead being hit with the abilities myself as they fly right through my teammates and run into me. It feels janky in my opinion. When you Suzu a teammate in order to save them, but end up dying to the junk nade flying through them, it just really doesn't feel very good. And from a Dooms player perspective, it feels unfair, just plain wrong, to fly right through an enemy and it costs you your life. I'd like to see Blizzard address this by maybe bumping up how long the invincibility frames last for, but make it so that the heroes touched by cleanse are still interacted with. It might feel like a severe nerf to the ability, so her power should be compensated in other ways, but I think it's a necessary change in order to remove some of the random jank moments the ability causes. Continuing on hero abilities, Cassidy's magnetic grenade. Similar to cleanse, at times this ability just feels unfair. Grenade replaced Cassidy's stun, which while was also oppressive, still required the player to hit a headshot or two to finish off a target, or be right up close to right click. But now the grenade just straight up locking onto a target and tracking them even around corners just doesn't seem to fit the highly aim intensive character Cassidy is. Don't get me wrong, I don't want stun back in the game either, but I'd like to see something different. We've seen a couple different iterations of grenades, mines, and various throwables, but one thing we haven't seen is like a straight up classic Call of Duty style frag grenade. Maybe it's a terrible idea or maybe it would be awesome, but either through reworking Cassidy or a future damage hero, I'd love to see a classic pull the pin grenade that maybe did like 150 damage at closest impact. Both stun and magnetic grenade have had way too strong of a cheesy feeling, and I think a more long range, accurate throwable would fit into the game better. Something that enemies can anticipate and attempt to avoid, or can be placed well by the player to cut off a choke point or catch a weak enemy who backed around a wall. Let me know what you guys think about that one, or any ideas you have for what could take the place of Cassidy's magnetic grenade. To round out the heroes, let's discuss the recent Mercy changes. When Blizzard increased the Guardian Angel cooldown by a full second, they heavily affected the one part of Mercy's kit that allows skill expression to shine. Yes, she was flying around too fast and too far, but they should have just nerfed the movement itself rather than how often you can use it. As someone who plays a fair amount of Mercy, the full extra second of feeling like a sitting duck feels absolutely terrible, and you're better off saving the ability for when you actually need it. Whereas before, you could fluidly fly around the action. Additionally, the way they adjusted Mercy's self-heal to where now she heals herself as she heals allies has made her interactions kind of awkward now. If I'm trying to shoot a Mercy and someone else is shooting who she's healing, we're essentially working against each other. In your average ranked game, the coordination to shoot the same target all the time is rarely going to be there, and I feel like this was just an unnecessary change. Plus, if your support duo heals a target that you need to heal off of to top up your own health, you're essentially just robbed of your new passive. And while I do like that her new extra healing when a target is under 50% enables her to save tanks more often, it's made Pharmacy and just pockets in general even harder to deal with. I agree that Mercy changes were needed, but very few people, including myself, think that these were the way to go about them. I really think Blizzard should revert some of this stuff and go back to the drawing board on how to handle her. Finally, I think a few maps could use some adjusting, specifically the first points on Junkertown and Havana. These maps favor Widowmaker so heavily that if one team has a much better Widow player than the other, it's practically a decided point. There's very little counterplay to force the Widow out of their position, and instead you're forced to cross mass open areas with little more than hope they don't tag you. I don't mind there being maps that are stronger for one-shot heroes, but my problem is that with these 2 points specifically, there's very little that can be done aside from hoping someone on your team can play Widow themselves and win the duels. When attacking Havana, you're immediately forced into a wide open sightline, or alternatively, a tiny choke to the left. But improving the flank route on the right that leads up to the main balcony could help give the attacking team more options. And on Junkertown near the end of point A, squishies are practically sitting ducks for a Widow to look down on from multiple different angles. So perhaps taller cover to position behind could provide the attacking team ways to maneuver around the sightlines. These maps just feel way too much in favor of one player being able to completely take over, and we've all seen it happen many times. And I'm sure many of you have more input on what should be changed, added, or removed from the game, so be sure to comment down below and I can talk about them in my next video. As always, I appreciate you watching. I appreciate anybody who subscribes. Take care. Peace.